Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight, we're doing a special program. We're going to talk about the emotions of what the world is going through, specifically with our dance teacher and studio owner folks. As you know, we've been at this 7 weeks. The last couple of weeks have been a little bit tough. And as I talk to dance teachers, some are looking for inner solutions that will calm their mind and their soul. So I thought on this Friday night, we'd bring in Dr. Claudette and some guests who are going to serve as panelists. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have Terry Mangiarardi in Bentonville and June Lawrence serving on our panel. Claudette, would you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been a psychologist for 36 years. I'm a Harvard grad, which means you're going to hear my Boston accent even though I don't recognize it when I'm doing it. So that's basically who I am. I am still in private practice, and I love my work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for, I'll call it, hanging out with us tonight, because
I'm pleased.
It's an honor to be able to present this to our dance teacher friends. Here's my first question for you, Claudette. As I find things to inspire me, either online, YouTube, I've discovered that they keep explaining that we're in a mourning period. And I have to admit, it does feel like a mourning period, but it seems like it's lasting a long time. Can you describe what the mourning period is to everybody, please?
Well, generally a mourning period is when you lose someone or something, and generally there's kind of an end to it. There's some boundaries around it, and in other words, a person dies, you go through a funeral, you're able to bury that person. But with this, it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and the mourning period is you're profoundly you feel exhausted, you feel scattered, you feel very weepy, you feel lack of energy. You feel like you can't control what's going on around you. And it's a really, your emotions are thrown up in the air, and you're trying to make sense of it. And again, in a normal mourning period, there are specific areas or specific boundaries. And in this, there are no boundaries because it's ongoing.
And so what are your suggestions for those of us who may be feeling this pressure? How do you escape this? What do you suggest?
Well, I honestly feel that self-care is really, really important. And I know that you are people who work very, very hard and feel a tremendous responsibility to your clientele. And it's always ongoing, and you've got a lot of kids looking at you, you have a lot of other instructors looking at you, and you need to be able to say, take time away. You need to be able to structure your day so that you're not running from 7 o'clock in the morning on, that you're taking chunks of time, that you get outside and you walk. You make sure you're not eating potato chips and cookies and all that you're eating good food. If you have a glass of wine, you don't have 4, you have 1. You get yourself into bed and hopefully you can sleep, but it's really trying to normalize as best you can what's going on, except that there's no normalization for this because it's constantly ongoing. So it's a very hard time, but it is about paying attention. And when you pay attention, you're also then to yourself, you're also helping the parents pay attention to themselves, the kids paying attention, because kids don't quite understand what this is about. They're all up in the air all the time, and they're looking to you for stability. And so it's important to take care of yourself so that when you are in the role that people are looking at you, that you're stable, that you're certainly aware of what's going on, but that you're a force that's stable and comfortable, because the kids read off us exactly what's going on. So we can say, oh, everything is fine and you'll be fine, and they're going to read it. So if you're not taking good care of yourself, they're going to read the panic and they will not know what to do with it because they don't have any control over anything, really.
What about being able to do the class with a big smile? I know that all of my panelists will agree. But then when you are done with that class, you have nothing left.
Nothing left, drained. The feeling for grief and this is called protracted grief, which means it won't end, is you feel completely drained. You have no energy to want to do anything beyond. And then when you put out energy to actually run the classes, you're putting out a lot. And so, I think going into the classes, I think it's important to say this is a hard time. This is a hard time for everyone. And we're all going to try to do our best to, make sense of all of this. And tonight we're going to do a class, and then you put your smile on, and then you do the class, because movement is a wonderful way to be able to lift depression. Outside with sun behind your eyes, wonderful way to move depression, but movement particularly. And if the kids can get into the dance, and if the instructors can get into the dance, it is a built-in way to combat depression.
Any comments or questions, ladies, on that so far?
I feel pretty good listening to that. That was you sort of earmarked or eyeballed everything that I felt, and I think that is it is true that we're in front of the camera and we're excited about it, but to let the kids feel your emotions. The first class I had with my 4-year-olds, when I was saying goodbye to them like this, I burst into tears. Yep. Happy tears, but it was like I didn't know why I was doing that, and I did that again with the 13-year-olds. I could cry a little longer with them, but I thought, it was still happy tears, but I thought it was good. You make me feel better that I cried in front of them, that they saw me, that I was vulnerable.
I will tell you that you may be teaching dance movements, but you're really teaching about life to these kids, and they're going to be looking at you and wondering what's going on. You're a pretty important person in their life, a person that helps them to just feel their world. And so, you can share some of it. You need to be cautious about not sharing all of it, but clearly share it. And if you're able to share some of it, and you're able to somehow get them to talk a little bit about it, or very little about it, or even put it into a movement. When you're feeling sad, why don't we just freelance? What do you do when you feel sad? So they can do this, or they can do whatever, but it allows them, this is a sad time. So we're just going to work hard at trying to feel happy. And so, you do it with movement as well, because that's what you teach. Yeah.
Wow, Claudette, you sounded like you know us. And that's
I'm glad.
That's called improvisation in our world. And yes, this is the perfect time for improv and letting our kids express the emotions of life.
Right. And
I find, sorry if I can ask a question, I find myself, and maybe others do as well, that if I allow myself to have that vulnerability on camera with the kids, there's a fear I won't get it back under control, but I feel like they're there to be uplifted, to be forgetting about the day, and maybe mom and dad are totally stressed out at home, and I don't want to bring that into our world that we have connected with them. I want it to always be up. So even, yesterday I was so down in the dumps, but as soon as the camera went on, I was like, okay, fake it till you make it, and put on the smile, and had a class no matter what. And working with the kids always brings me out of it, but I fear for letting the bubble go a little bit because it may not close again. And
okay, so clearly what you're doing when I say show some of it is show a little bit of it. And if you feel you can't keep it together, then don't. But I think it's unrealistic to not address it a little bit, so we can say we're here and sometimes we feel sad, but we're here to be happy today. We're here to move and feel our expressions, but sometimes we're sad, and that's okay. And then get right into being the teacher that you are, because on some levels you need to be that strong person. But it's addressing it a little bit, because we can't give them a false world, and this is certainly not the stage to give them a depressive mood. If you feel like you're really depressed, don't teach that day. Get someone else to teach, because you have to take care of yourself too.
That's a great point. I think that's a great point. And I did have, I had a little, not emergency, but kind of impromptu staff meeting yesterday with my teachers, because I felt like I just wanted to drive home the fact that, you know, address it. When you log in, you can do your, this is a really tough time. I hope we're all doing okay. Here's what we're going to do,
Yeah.
and then move on, because I think we need to model resilience is like
Yes.
maybe the biggest thing we need to model right now. And then I also just wanted to make sure that we talked to every kid and said every child's name before we hung up. I kind of use the analogy of like getting invited to a party and then nobody talks to you, and that some of these kids may be logging in like they don't really care about the dance so much. They're just logging in for the connection. And if we then don't say their name, they may leave even worse off than when they came in.
I love it.
So I feel like that's kind of, I don't know, that's what I had said to my staff. It's like being invited to a party, you have to talk to them, not just teach the class and then say goodbye. I don't want them to leave worse than they came in.
That's what I was saying before. You're not only teaching them movement, you're teaching them life. And so when you validate them, when you say a person's name, you clearly validate them. And so you're going to validate them. And yes, they may be just reaching out for connection, you know, and that's a very good point. And that's very important. That's very important. You have a bigger role than you think in these children's lives.
All right. I know each of you has come today with a question. Before we do that, we're live, I know, but Claudette, can you move to your leftist?
I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to get a little bit in the center here. So let me try this over here. Is that a little bit? That's, yeah. My camera's right here. Yeah, that's what the problem is. My camera, and I was trying to adjust it before.
You're awesome.
Is that a little better?
It's better. I'll take you any way we can get you.
Okay.
Terry, would you like to go with your question first, please?
I think we talked about a lot of it, because I was wondering just the best way we can serve our kids when we're Zooming with them. But I'm also wondering, I guess, well, for how I'm feeling, and we've been, you know, using the term, it's like a roller coaster. We're on like this roller coaster. And I do feel like some days I have the energy, I get through it. I get my hair done and I'm looking good. I get some things done. I'm feeling like I've made progress. And then the next day I can barely move. And I have to, I'm just accepting that. I did it today, but I cannot do it tomorrow. And then I'm going to have to hit it again the next day. I guess I'm looking for maybe you to share with our audience, because I know that's how they're feeling too, that's okay, and how to get through that.
Absolutely okay. Normal and okay. Because if you push yourself beyond all the time what you can do, you will have a big crash. And so if you can push yourself for a while, you know, where it's important for you to be up and present to people. And then when you get back, it's like, you know what? I'm just pooped. I'm exhausted. I need to crash. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody. And please, somebody else make supper. You know, that is perfectly fine. And it is not that you are crashing. It's just that there's so much going on. There's a lot for us to absorb. It isn't about losing a parent or losing one person. It's about looking at the world in such chaos that this is the first time we're experiencing this. And it's very overwhelming, and you feel completely spent. And it's okay to do that. All you need to be careful about is that when you're in role and you're in front of the kids, you know, I mean, I want you to be real, but I want you to be upbeat, and I want you to be solid, because they're looking to see who's solid in their lives. And maybe their parents are not so solid in their lives, you know, but you would be a solid person. So it's that, address it a little bit. And I like addressing it in terms of movement. Sometimes I feel like this, but today we're going to be like this, you know, and up and upbeat. And then when you go home, crash. And that's normal. That's very normal. It would be abnormal if you did not, because then you're just storing it down and storing it down. And then you're going to have a major explosion, and you don't want to do that.
Great. Thank you, Claudette. June.
My question, we addressed a little bit about how to talk to the children and talk to their parents. But I also thinking about, for me, I just get comfortable like, you know, we get onto the Zoom classes and we're doing this and everything's great. And I'm just sort of going with the pattern. Then all of a sudden something new, like the rules change and the government issues something else. So it's like, I'm always thinking about what's next. And that can get me a little bit into a spin where, and I know I have no control over what's happening, but you know, I just get comfortable. Life is good. I'm cooking dinner. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I like this pattern. And then something comes in like a big truck and knocks it out of the way.
That's the world we're living in right now. There's so much unknown, and we're going to have those unexpected pieces. And so it's a little bit of what I was saying before. You know, when things come in, you can have a reaction to it, and then it's like, okay, how do I constitute myself? How do I bring myself back to me? You know, and then it becomes quite simple. You have a new grandchild, you're FaceTiming with this grandchild, you're doing that kind of thing. And so like, okay, I want to support my daughter, I want to support my grandchild, I want to be able to be comfortable. And it is about coming into yourself. When you can't absorb everything that's out there, then remember that the primary person in your life is you, followed by, you know, your kids and grandchildren, spouses. And so just, you know, bring yourself into a mode of saying, it's okay to just take care of me, you know, because if you don't, you will crash.
So ladies, I want to follow up with, isn't it our group that has a really hard time saying, I'm gonna take care of me?
No, that's not good. Sorry.
It's who we are.
Yeah, I know.
Work so many long days that by the time you are in your crash mode, I don't even know what doing something for myself means anymore, other than laying on the couch.
Okay, well, I'm really gonna suggest, I'll tell you, women do this not taking care of themselves really well, you know, and so I really want you to do things like sit down when you get off this thing with a couple of index cards, a nice bright color on it, and I want you to sit down and write, what makes me feel good? What makes me feel free? What makes me feel satisfied? When am I feeling my best? Now, you'll start off by saying, I have no idea what that is. And I really want you to pay attention to trying to figure out what it is that does make you feel good. Now, I'm going to go back just in case it doesn't get put into place. This notion of guilt. I want to give you the definition of guilt, and it should be tattooed on your arm. You should only feel guilty when you willfully harm another. That is the only time you should feel guilty, when you willfully harm another. Circumstantially, right now, things are not the way they want to be. Circumstantially, things happen, but guilt is reserved for when you willfully harm another. And I'm not kidding you, write that down, because women are really good also at feeling guilt. And a lot of people in general are good at feeling guilt. And I always question people, did you willfully harm someone? Because if you did not, it's not guilt. It will just be circumstantial. You can feel sad. So that kind of falls into the same category of, you know, you can push yourself to the point of being creative, but what will happen is if you push yourself too much, your creativity is going to absolutely go down. You're not going to have it inside. I would assume for me is when you're dancing, you're letting out all of your internal stuff. That's wonderful and exciting and connected. And if you don't have it, you're going to be blah. And if you do it all constantly, you really will be setting yourself up for not a happy life. And we only have one shot at this.
I wanted to jump in and say at the beginning of this, when we were going along like a race car and then we literally slowed.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool to slow. It
Yes.
was like, oh, you know, because housework is not me. Being around the house, I wasn't here a lot, but part of me is really liking that and enjoying that and realizing that I didn't need a lot of that busy stuff that I was putting on myself. So taking a look at what's going to happen, getting back, is like putting the pieces together in a different way. So that's
you are
cool.
so right. You are so right. That particularly for people that are in, you know, the A-type personality and just moving along, when you start slowing down, you're like, wow, I forgot that I need to take care of me. I forgot that I can actually sit down and have a cup of tea and not be, you know, multitasking while I'm trying to have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. And I think it's teaching people, you know, what's going on now is teaching people woo, I need to restructure some stuff so that I'm not this way. And so I talk to my patients all the time on Zoom and on FaceTime. And some of them are very distressed and disturbed and depressed with it. And some are saying, you know, this feels crazy that with this world, with everything that's going on, that I feel happy about the time that I'm happy to be at home and the time to sit down and think. And I haven't had time to sit down and read a book in like 10 years. And I'm sitting down, I'm reading a book, and I, you know, and it's just what you said. It's about saying to yourself, how do I restructure my world so I'm not on a treadmill that will just destroy me? And so that at the end of my life, I will, instead of feeling good, I'm going to feel exhausted. Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, this is well worth the price this hour with our shrink, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean that.
Anytime you want me, I'm happy
that in
to
the
do it.
kindest way. Ann,
Yes.
go for your question, concern.
Well, one of mine was that sense of guilt because you're working nonstop from your home. Like there's days that go by, my 13-year-old's at home, obviously, schooling. I assume he's schooling because I haven't paid attention to him all day. I think he ate, don't know what he ate all day. And then it's the end of the day. I'm like, we've been in the same house for like 18 hours a week or 12 hours a week, and we haven't spent 1 minute together. And that's just one thing. Like, never mind my husband, my daughter graduated from university. I haven't had time to or even think about celebrating. How do I do that in this situation? Like the guilt is just crazy.
Tattoo it on your arm.
I step away from work for like a day, and then I'm like, oh my God, I should be working. I got to get to that email, or like sitting down, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. But you're going through your emails and you're texting people and you're responding and you're answering the phone. I'm not having a break, you idiot.
Well, you know, you
do it. It's like nonstop working, and
I want to, Claudette, because I know how we are. I want to say this. I know what you just described about guilt, and I've heard you say that before.
Yep.
I want to describe the four of us. If you sat down for a minute and you said, I'm making a cup of coffee, and you just sat with your cup of coffee, you'd say, where's my phone? And then a light would go on the phone, and you'd feel like, okay, I have to respond to that because I don't want to fall behind. Have I described this the right way, you guys?
completely.
How does one work on changing that?
Well, you step yourself back and say, where am I in my life? What are the things that are important to me? That will go back to that index card that I talked about before. What makes you happy? I want you to do that. You get an index card. What makes you feel free? What makes you feel happy? What makes you feel at peace? And if you've lost touch with all of that stuff, then you're going to be in that rat race that you're talking about, which you can't sit down for a cup of coffee because the phone lights up, you're going to pick it up, and then you're going to get right into it. You have to structure these pieces to take care of yourself. If you don't, you will have problems, you know, and then again, you're a role model. You're really a role model for the kids that you teach and the people around you. And if you're not somehow showing that you're taking care of yourself, they will not learn it. And I'll tell you, if you have children, believe me, your children will not learn it. So you have to pay attention to that. And most people don't pay attention to that. They just run too fast.
Can you talk to Ann a little bit about the fact that her son and her are in the same house, and she's not feeling guilt, because we know now we don't feel that. She's feeling uncomfortable because she's not spending time with him.
Are you willfully trying to do that, Ann?
Willfully trying to do which? Not spend time with him?
Ignore your son?
Not willfully, no.
Okay.
It gets to the end of the day and I kind of look back and went, wow, I think we speak 5 words to each other.
So guess what? Every time we put one foot in front of the other, or every time we go through a trauma or anything that's big, it's all learning tools. So you've stepped yourself back and said, you know, this is kind of awful. I'm here with my son, and I don't know what he ate. I don't know what he's doing. And because I'm just too busy, it's a learning step. So the step is here. Who's important in my life, and what is this about? Because you can, and I want you to work well. So please don't think that I'm not saying, go down to your C game, but I think you sometimes need to go down to your B game, which is like, there are times for me too. And this is when people go through things, when people have traumas in their life, it's a time for people to step back. So stepping back now and say, you know what? I need to pay more attention to the connections with my son because, what is he, 18? How old is he?
13.
Okay, well, guess what? He's going to march off to college. He's going to march off and get married, and then they're gone, and then you're going to have lost that time together with him. No, it doesn't have to be all day, but in your mind's eye and on a piece of paper, you're charting out times that you're going to sit with him and you're going to talk with him. And because if you don't, you're going to miss a big chunk of what's important, and you're going to be the one that has to rule on that. Each one of us have to set our boundaries, and we have to rule on what's important in our life and make sure that we do that and move to that.
Yeah, I think the challenge, I think what makes it hard for Aunt, like I have 2 teenagers at home too, a 14 and a 16-year-old, and normally we go to work, we come home. I think we were talking about this on Wednesday. We go to work, we come back. So we can physically put ourselves in the place that we're focused. But now we are all in the same space and we're trying to focus. We don't know. It's all confused now because I'm home, but I'm supposed to be focusing at work. They're home, but they're supposed to be focusing at school. My husband's home, but he's working from home, and we're all in the same space, but I'm not really supposed to be focusing on you right now, but here you are in front of me. So I don't know. And I think that's why it's so confusing right now. So I think we have to change the boundary from like physical space to time, like the actual schedule of the day. If we can't change physical space, we have to pick an end time.
Yeah.
That's right. You absolutely have to. You absolutely have to do that. You have to pick the time that you're going to work, whether you're working, Zooming classes or doing whatever. You pick the time that you work, and when you're done working, that's it. You shut it down, and you make sure that you're putting in some family time as best you can. You have to do that because the truth of the matter is that people are working much harder now while they're at home than they would be if they were in the studio, or for me, it's I'm working harder now than being in my office, and so, it's very important to put those boundaries in, because if not, you're going to be completely overrun. And what happens is that because the boundaries are not automatically there, i.e. your studio, that you're working in your studio and then you can leave it, you need to make sure that you're putting the boundaries in.
Yeah, I'm wondering the day that we'll all shut off our computers and our phones and everything at 5 o'clock, that we could actually get to the point where we don't have to be on anything electronic.
Right.
I have a question that came in from somebody that knew we were going to do this talk tonight, a dance teacher. And I really think this is something to address. Displaced anger at this time. And here's the example that I got, but it could be going on in families, it could be going on anywhere. But let's say the studio owner sends out an update on what next week's schedule is. Yeah. And all of a sudden they get this nasty letter from a parent who seemed fine a week ago.
Yeah.
It just is degrading and mean. Now, for the dance teacher who has worked 24 hours a day, like the ones here, when you get that, you only feel that, you only see that, even if you got 100 compliments.
Yep.
Talk to us about this displaced anger and how prevalent it may be at this time.
Let me just start off by saying that the stages of grief. First one is denial. This is not really happening. The next stage of grief is anger. Don't know how to deal with it, so it's an angry outburst. Then it goes into bargaining and depression and finally acceptance. But what happens is when people are off kilter and their world is not the same, and clearly their world is not the same. They have anger that goes out, I refer to it as goes out sideways. So it's not directed towards a specific thing that they need to be angry about, but it's all over the place. And because people are at the end of their wits, they're done with it. This needs to be over now. They're all stressed out and stretched anyway. And so anything that fuels them, up it goes. And if they have kind of an angry personality, then they're a mess and they're all over the place. To deal with it is to step yourself back and say, okay, you know, I mean, you need to address it along the terms of, you know, I think it's really important to watch how we talk to each other, because it's a sad day when we can't talk nicely, because the common denominator that we have together is your child dancing. And you know, this is an uncertain time, and certainly we're trying to figure our way through this. But you know, we both have a common denominator, and that's your child. And then that's it. Then go on. And this person continues to talk very inappropriately to you. I want you to say, you know, I feel bad that you're feeling this way, but I will not allow you to speak to me that way. We'll talk maybe again when we're both feeling more comfortable. Then hang up. Don't let them go on and on. Don't let anybody go on and abuse you. So you don't say F you and then run away, you know, but you say, you know, this is wrong. This is inappropriate conversation, and I won't listen to it. And when we're feeling better, we can talk then. And hang up. You shouldn't be battered. You're doing the best that you can. And you remember the definition of guilt. You're not willfully harming someone when you're shutting down classes. You're saving people when you shut down physical classes. And you need to remember that. And you need to remember to take care of yourself, because you're such a role model to the kids that are watching you. And if you start going under, you know, they lose an important part of their lives.
Wow. As we close this out, anybody have any final questions for me, Dr. Claudette? Ian?
So, I mean, a lot of us are thinking about, you know, maybe in September when we can get back to the studio, and then when everything has to be rescheduled and cleaned in between classes, and kids come in and parents can't come in, and there's only so much, like, how do you stop that spiraling of the fear of the unknown future, which we can't possibly know what's going to happen yet? And
Well,
yes,
I will tell you how you stop the spiraling. You live in the right now. You live in today, because we really don't know what's going to happen. And I know that you're probably very, very resourceful as individuals. And I only have to deal with today, because if I let myself spiral into what's going to happen tomorrow, you know, or even what happened yesterday, it's just going to, it's too much. We should only be dealing with what's going on for us today, what's going on in this class. This person says, well, I'm not coming back. I don't like this and all that. Then you say, I wish you well, and take care. And things may change. You may lose some students that don't want to do it this way. You may gain some people later on. You may gain a little bit of time right now from getting off that treadmill. You might gain a little bit of time to take care of yourself. It will come back, but try not to put yourself in that position that you give other people power over you. You know what you're doing. You're running your classes. You know, you're interacting with the kids. Stay in the moment. Don't go far. Don't go further. Own your power at that time.
Wow. Final words of wisdom, Miss Claudette or Dr. Claudette.
Claudette's fine.
Final words of wisdom for those who on this Friday night want to wake up tomorrow in a better space.
I know this is going to sound like such a cliche, but seriously, take care of yourself. Go and write that little index card. And if you're stuck and you don't know what makes you feel free, or what makes you feel happy, or what makes you feel content, or just that what makes you feel relaxed, I want you to sit down and think about that. And I don't care if it's, I feel free when I make myself a cup of coffee. I feel free when I stay in bed an extra 15 minutes. I feel free when I can get out and walk. I feel free when nobody can find me. And, you know, and whatever. I want you to write down all small things And when you start concentrating on that, you will become so much more relaxed in your person. You will become a better instructor because they're looking at you. You're a model. And so if you're just kind of putting on a face and working your bum off to try to put this program out there, but it's at a huge cost for you, it will take its toll. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to. So it is about, taking care of yourself, writing down what makes you feel comfortable. Look at it, put it on the refrigerator, write it down, stick it on the refrigerator. So you're looking at it, about this is what makes me feel good, and if you do that, you're going to get through this. You're resourceful. You've got a lot of energy. You have the wonderful ability to move. Can you tell I'm an old, frustrated, wish I would have taken dancing lessons instead of singing lessons, which is what my mother wanted me to do. I always wanted to dance, but now I'm too old. And, but it's what makes you feel happy. If you don't pay attention to it, you can't show it to anyone else.
Wow. I want to say how much I appreciate you making the time to talk to all of us. I know this is going to make a difference. It'll give us all food for thought.
I'm happy, and I've enjoyed it so much. And if you want to invite me back, I'll come.
I will, and I'll say this to our viewers. You want to submit some questions to address in a future show. That would be something we would consider. Thank you, Terry, June, Ann, and Claudette. This was really good. I feel better just having had this conversation today, and I hope all our viewers will feel the same way. Tune in tomorrow night. Nice, calm night, hanging out with Gio Hubella, one of the nicest men in our field. See you then, about 8 o'clock. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.